Welcome to Art Ed Radio, the podcast for art teachers. This show is produced by the Art of Education University, and I'm your host, Tim Bogans. As our students go through their educational experience, far too often they are taught that questions have one right answer. They begin to internalize that there's one way to do things, and their grades are the end-all be-all, the things that define their learning. Now, I think we can agree on two things. One, that's not right. Two, art class is the perfect place to have kids recalibrate their thinking, to explore, to experiment, and to learn that there are multiple ways to answer a question and multiple ways to get to each answer. We can show kids that it's okay to fail and teach them that as long as they learn something from the process, they can utilize that learning in the future. And honestly, we need to fail. Okay, when our kids are failing and then coming back from that, when they are picking themselves back up, and that is leading to them building resilience and building problem-solving skills. And I think creating that safe space in our classrooms in order to fail, give kids the chance to fail and to come back to pick themselves up, and that is so important. And so that's going to be part of our discussion today as well. And coming on the podcast for the first time ever is Stan Dodson. He is a high school teacher from Georgia, and he's doing a lot of wonderful things with his kids. We've been working with him behind the scenes for a few things with AOEU, and he is awesome. Great ideas, great teaching. His kids produce great work. You can check him out on Twitter at the Artman Stan. We'll link to that, of course. And I think you'll like what you see there. And I think you'll enjoy hearing from him today on the show. But before Stan joins me, I want to share something exciting with you. The Art of Education University is offering its art therapy graduate course for the very first time, starting on October 1st, which is really soon. You have to sign up this week. So if you are interested, stick around till the end of the episode. I'll give you all the details that you need. But until then, let's talk to Stan Dodson. All right, and now joining me on the first time ever on the podcast, Mr. Stan Dodson. Stan, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. Great, Tim. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I'm really happy that you can make your podcast debut. I think
I know, right?
We should be able to have a good conversation here. I know there's a lot for us to talk about. Before we dive into the conversation, though, can you just kind of give everybody a little bit of background? Like, since this is your first time on the podcast, can you give us an introduction to who you are, what you do?
Absolutely. It'd be my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate this opportunity. I teach in Georgia at a school called Burke County High School, and it's in a little tiny rural community in Waynesboro, which is really close to Augusta, Georgia. And most people, you say Augusta, and they're like, oh, yeah, I know where that's at.
Yeah, yeah.
We got a little golf around here.
Nice. Now, I know you are really big on the process side, process over product with your art teaching. So can you talk to me a little bit about why that's important to you? And then maybe talk a little bit about how you go about teaching process to your kids.
Absolutely. I do love the process. I think for a long time, as a student myself and a working artist, process has just been a really important part to who I am. And I thought, what better way to bring in some of my own personal artistic insights into my classroom? I think in a society that places, so much emphasis on product, why can't the process be the product is what I tell my kids. Shouldn't we place value on investigation, on exploration, on the journey? Ultimately, I tell my students, solid process reflects solid products. Process, I think, helps students embrace failure, to see failure as a means to grow and not a way to end. I have seen that, many students initially, they have a difficult time working with the expectation of process. It's from my understanding, maybe it's the standardized testing. And most students, they're looking for that one best solution or that one best answer. And, ultimately, there's many answers and many solutions. And these skills are the skills that we want our students to have in their toolbox of life. Innovative thinking, learning to look beyond the obvious, and seeing failure as a means to help propel you through and not a means to stop you.
Yeah, I think that's really, really well said. And I've been admiring just sort of all of the kind of cool projects that you do. I know you share a lot on Twitter and, just some great images there. So I wanted to ask you about a couple of those projects. First up,
sure.
You showed some really cool drawings of donuts that your kids
the donuts.
So importantly, we need to know whether we eat them or not, but also more importantly, those are fun drawings, but what do kids learn from those types of drawings? Why do you bring them in, and how do you teach, using that as your subject matter?
I think it's a really great starting point, because that project in itself is a way that I go about teaching process in kind of a fun little way. Generally, especially with some of my advanced or AP level classes, I do a lot of prompt-based assignments or journal reflections that give them a little bit of open-ended discovery. But, sometimes students just have a hard time getting started. Students become the inquirers, and they're the inquirers through the media, through the process, through the product. Myself, I feel like I'm just the guide in the classroom. I just help move students along through what I call their expedition of their artistic journey. And I'm just here to offer, insights and guidance and feedback. But ultimately, I really want the students to have ownership of their journey. And this little project, which I called 50 Donuts, is something that I adapted from a module I learned at my graduate school time. I assign a challenge for them to draw 50 donuts. The students are given 2 donuts, and of course, one is for them to eat. The other is for them to draw. So you can't look at a donut for a whole couple days and not eat one, right? So they have to eat one. So I tell them, now you get to draw the donut 50 times. At first, students are like, yeah, this is easy. I got this. But I'd say, I don't know, number 12, they start to hit that figurative wall. And that's exactly what I want. I want them to go ahead and churn out all those obvious solutions like graphite, marker, and color pencil, because then they can begin to look for more innovative ways to just make a mark and innovative ways to create that mark. I say, hey, what would happen if you draw the donut with a mascara wand using coffee or a paper clip? The solutions, they're so varied, they're so open-ended. And from the many, a few will reveal personal voice and innovation. I like to tell the students, let's just use the 10% rule. Do many, and typically 10% emerge as relevant. In the end, it's not about the donut at all. It's about the process. It helps students embrace process and discovery on a small, tangible level. And hopefully they build and learn to take risk and elevate their thinking from the obvious to the exceptional. And I tell my students this a lot about spaghetti. I say, this is kind of a learned skill, this process. Think about what we do compared to cooking spaghetti, to see if it's done. Sometimes you have to throw it against the wall. If it sticks, you're good to go. So when developing ideas, sometimes you have to throw crazy things out there, and it might stick and it might not. But from the many, something will be revealed. And from 50 donuts, hopefully 5 emerge as something that's evocative, that's personal, that's innovative. And the kids love it. They love looking at donuts.
Yeah, well, as long as they get to eat one anyway. They love looking at it.
It's the part where I get to tell them, that Ziploc bag with the donut in it that we stored in the drawer? Yeah, 2 weeks later. It's still there, guys. We got to get those. There's a whole nother process thing happening in that drawer now.
Yeah, that's funny. So let me ask you, then do you see, that sort of experimental mark making? Does that take hold with, bigger drawings that they do, or is that something that is continued to develop with some other ideas, as you move throughout the semester?
I think it's absolutely. I think it's absolutely embraced, and I think it's partly because of the environment that we try to nurture, and thus from that environment we try to cultivate a way to think and do. And so we see the kids learning to embrace, risk taking, and to see failure as a way or means to get to the end product, because no one likes the word failure. But but we just try it like as trials or experiments or, ways to see through and push through. It helps them develop really good work ethic too. And I think that is one of those skills that, moves them into the 21st century, well beyond just being an artist. This is being a really good thinker and person of the world and the community.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And, just even, I don't know, like bringing it back from the whole idea of like what's going on beyond, just trying to finish things just in class. Like, let's say you have a portfolio to put together for college, or, like an AP portfolio that you're trying to do. Like, not everything is going to be super fun and super exciting to work on. Like, sometimes you just need to grind it out and just get it done. And,
absolutely.
And if you can develop those habits, like, it can be so beneficial for them.
It is. It's definitely that. That really makes me think of a quote from Chuck Close, because I love to use that, talking about like kids are always sitting around waiting for like a lightning bolt to hit them, right, or for them to find their muse. And mostly it's just like Chuck Close would say, don't wait around for inspiration at all. Inspiration's for amateurs. The rest of us just show up and get the work. The real ideas come from the process, from really just doing the work.
Yeah, absolutely. I use that quote all the time as well. It's a good one. Now, another project that you were showing, like you had a lot of images of this. I was really fascinated by that. It was your black and white, or maybe like your ebony and ivory drawings.
Yeah.
Can you kind of describe the process of those and
Absolutely.
what you want kids to learn from those? I know like one is constructive, one is reductive. Can you just talk about that a little bit?
For sure. I find that when the students come back from their summer break, they haven't been as active with their art making.
Right.
And some of the technicals, surprise. Some of the skills have kind of fallen aside. It's kind of like, playing a trumpet. If you don't play it for 2.5 months, you're not going to sound great. So I use this still life as a way for them to get some of their technical skills back, and a way for them to maybe develop a little bit of integrating some personal voice. So for the first still life, it's all about the egg. I give each student an egg, and they have to put a little hole in it and kind of drain the yolk from it, and they get to set up their own personal all white still life, which is kind of fun. They get to choose from china pieces and a spoon or the egg. And I tell them, think about the egg. What could the egg represent? Because there's so much that you can look into the egg, and it can be very open-ended. And then they set up their own still life lights, and each day they're drawing on white paper using kind of a limited palette of graphite, maybe some charcoal, for them to really hone in on trying to find a way to create a composition that's striking, that presents it in really high contrast. And so they're real familiar with the additive concept. And just immediately after that white still life, we move right into the all black still life. And so then we're working from the round, in which I've created a central still life in the middle of the room. And I spray paint various objects like a bicycle and a stool and a lamp and books. And it's all spray painted black. And then we spotlight it. And then their job is to look through little viewfinders to find really strong compositions and do an additive process where they're adding into the piece using just white pencil on black paper. And it's challenging for them to really do that, to really go from, looking at something that's white to looking at something that's all black. It's kind of like some of those old, drawing from the right and left side of the brain. They have to use both sides of those thinking skills to look at those shapes and values. And then maybe think about mark making in the same time and presenting compositions that maybe speak to more than just a still life. How are you arranging it? How are the shadows falling? And why are you telling that story in that manner, in that way? It really tries to open the students up to looking beyond the obvious of like, this is not just an egg. This egg represents purity or birth or nurturing, or lots of different ways in which you arrange that still life. So it presents a lot of great products, but ultimately, the students find success through their product, their process.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, I think that's a really good description of kind of how you go about that. I love the idea of just spray painting everything black.
Yeah, it's so much fun. We're like, hey, let's put this in there and spray paint it. So And, there's different levels of success. You got to walk around the room like, yeah, the bicycle's pretty hard. I'm going to go stick over here with the stool.
Yeah. It's differentiation, right? Like,
absolutely.
Providing different levels.
Absolutely. It's a lot of fun. But they walk in that room and it's all lit and it's black and it's like, oh, okay, so we're doing this now.
Yeah. Good. You're getting great results from it, then. So, and then the other thing that I really wanted to ask you about, I know you're huge on visual journals. That's something, we talk a lot about on the podcast here. So, I guess I would just love your input as far as how you use those. Like, is that a safe place for kids to experiment? Do you want something more? Is it that investigation, experimentation idea, the trial run that you're talking about? Or do you...
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, or
it's certainly
Sorry, I was just going to ask, like, do you ever encourage, like, finished works in there as well?
For sure. Those are all really good questions to ask about the visual journals. I do love the visual journal. I think it's a place that I want the students to feel, one, safe to explore in, and to able to find that place that they can take that risk, that they can learn to take chaos and try to control it somehow, either through an emotional aspect or a technical aspect where they're trying to refine maybe a skill development. And so I try to balance my books between, technical and reflective, open-ended responses, where maybe have even more of a narrative component to it, where they have to write or respond in some kind of narrative component. Some students, they write poetry, they write like journal entries, they'll do songs that respond to them, and then some put visual components in there. And I leave it very open-ended. I want them to say, hey, collage is an element of design. Transfer tracing, why not? Put it in your book. Photography, sure, excellent, let's do that. I want them to feel safe. I want them to feel like this is a place for their voice. And sure, I'll go back to these pages. Like, you know that page you did? It had some really great watercolor technique. I think you should use this almost like as a thumbnail comp and work this piece up again. You're trying to come up with this idea, and I think the idea already lives and breathes right here in your journal. You forgot about it. And so to make that, like a part of who they are as artists, the journal, the thumbnail, the sketchbook, it is a living, breathing document, I think.
Yeah, that's really well said. And I think that's, a powerful idea of just letting kids have that safe space to develop voice. And I think that's a really worthwhile goal. So cool. All right. Well, Stan, I think we're about out of time, so we'll go ahead and wrap it up there. But thank you so much for taking some time to talk to me. I'm really glad you could make it on, and hopefully we'll have you back again soon.
All right. I look forward to it. This is a lot of fun.
All right, big thank you to Stan for coming on, for discussing some of his ideas when it comes to drawing, and really helping us explore some of those ideas by sharing what he does in his classroom. And, I think this type of discussion is really valuable because too often teachers pay a lot of lip service to process and exploration and experimentation, but rarely talk about how they teach it or the specifics or how they encourage students to do so. So I think having some concrete examples from Stan is incredibly helpful here. And I'm glad we were able to have that conversation today. And like I said, we'll need to have him on again because I think there's a lot more there that we can explore. Then, before we go, let's talk art therapy. As I said in the intro, this course begins its first section on October 1st. This means if you are interested that you will need to sign up by the 27th. That's Friday. That's 3 days away. You can go to theartofeducation.edu/courses to check it out and see all of the information that you need. Whether you're just curious or whether you're ready to sign up, it's all there. So art therapy will be a 3 credit hour course that runs for 8 weeks. It is a course that is designed to help you gain an understanding of the role of art therapy, the role of art therapists, and how those roles compare to what we do as art educators. You'll learn about strategies to help you foster self-esteem and self-awareness, cultivate emotional resilience, and promote creative insight with yourself and with your students. So if you have questions or want to sign up, again, head to theartofeducation.edu/courses. Art Ed Radio is produced by the Art of Education University with audio engineering from Michael Crocker. We will be back next week with Dr. Juanita Harmon and a discussion on social and emotional learning in the art room. We'll talk to you then.